That's how we're going.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Pardon us for the delay. We starting to get some things together, man. It's political season, so everything is ramping up right now, as you very well may know. And if you do not know, then you need to get in tune with knowing because it is getting real, as it always is. We typically do this thing from 6 to 8, where we bring you Welcome Northwest Austin Council, and we have community conversations, West Side people talking West Side things, and this is a very special month right here because this is the Freedman's Month, aka Black History Month. And so this program and lineup that we want to bring to you, we want to make sure that it's full of individuals that can speak directly to that blackness that it's so beautiful that there are no words to describe it really. And so the lineup is going to be fierce, and we definitely want to kick it off this month with Dr. Kim Dulaney. So before I bring her, she's already in the show, obviously, but before I let her announce herself and everything, I just want to tell you there's various ways of interacting with the show. You have the Facebook, you have the Zoom, you have the YouTube. If you're on the Facebook or the YouTube, like, subscribe, share. That way we can see that the numbers are growing and people love this content. Otherwise, comment on all of the platforms because that way you can interact directly with the show and we can talk about the things that's necessary to be talked about because you can't be here in person. This is a conversation after all. That being said, the way I typically start is I throw it to the co-host Steve. Let me bring you in the show. And I say what's going on, Steve.
Everything's going on. Like you said, it's Black History Month, and we definitely need to touch on a lot of our history. I mean, there's so much hidden in our history that we don't know about. We need to bring out and let people know. Like you said, also, I think the congressman still may show up.
Mm-hmm.
He had a pretty busy schedule today.
Fingers crossed, I'm hoping.
Yeah, and he can expound on a lot of things, with his knowledge of Black history also. First and foremost, we do want to acknowledge well, we spoke about Mr. Houston.
Yeah, we talked about Houston last week.
One of the peacemakers, and acknowledged his passing, and hopefully we'll have some knowledge of his being laid to rest in a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, go ahead.
Again, blessings and prayers to the family. Untimely deaths are always just that. They're untimely. And the thing about life that we always got to remember is that it's both short and long at the same time. So enjoy the days that you have in front of you. That way you don't want to look behind you, So I hope that's some encouragement to anybody out there that's dealing with the loss of a loved one because the season was right for so. The last couple of years, we lost a lot of individuals. And again, that wasn't as timely as it's supposed to have been. But, the thing about life is that it's here to be lived. So as long as that person was able to enjoy what they were given, salute them and such. And then that way they can have a positive passing. That being said, I want to go ahead and bring you right on into the show, Ms. Dulaney. Doctor, pardon me. You don't have a doctor on there, but I don't want to disrespect. No disrespect. Dr. Kim Dulaney we have on the line. So, Dr. Kim, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Thanks for having me on the show today. I am a mother. You said you talk about West Side things with West Side people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I live on the South Side, but my parents are from the West Side. Let me say that. My parents met on Monroe Street. They grew up there. My dad's from Mississippi, my mom's from Alabama, and they both moved to Monroe Street as children. My mother went to Crane. My father was a football star at Farragut. And they met on the block, married. She was 17. He was 19 when they got married and were married 50 years. They're both passed now, but they both from Monroe Street out west. So that's where my roots are from. That's where I was born and then moved to the South Side later. So I'm happy to be on the show. I am the Director of Education and Programs at DuSable Museum. That's my current position. I took early retirement from being a professor at Chicago State University. I was over the African American Studies Department there. And so those are the jobs I've held most recently. I took that early retirement August 15th of 2021. And so I'm full-time at DuSable, and I've been over there about 2 years.
All right.
Yeah. Mother of 2 beautiful children, What else y'all want to know? What you want to know? Let's get to it. Let's get into it.
You get it? You let us know it all. But you know what? I was thinking about the Sabo Museum. And my earliest memory of the museum was when it was on, I think it was Michigan Avenue. It was in the Greystone.
Yep.
And,
Dr. Girls in her house.
yeah.
That's right. On
Was
38th in Michigan. That's where it started.
That was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in first grade and we took a field trip there. And I was,
Wow.
that was my first introduction to Black history and slavery. And I was like, I mean, I kind of heard and knew, but I didn't really, I wasn't really reading like that at first grade. But it was just an amazing thing to see all the artifacts and for them to give a tour. And then I just remember being inside of that building. I'm like, this is a museum.
Yeah.
A museum could be
That was
anywhere.
her house. It was her house that she turned into a museum because she recognized that there weren't spaces honoring Black people's culture and art and artifacts. And she was traveling to Africa a lot and leading study tours and things like that. So she greatly respected, that connection to Africa and was bothered that there wasn't a place to show it. So she started showing things in her house. And people tell these great stories about the salon. I had the opportunity to meet her and talk with her on a couple of times, and she mentored a couple of my mentors. But they tell these stories about these great parties she had at her house with all these what came to be celebrity people and, these cultural salons and the fun times they had and, drinking and laughing and communing with each other and her supporting artists. She's well known for having supported artists support their work and support them financially. She would slide them some dollars and everything. So she's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, I think that was probably early 70s, like 72 or so, from what I can recall. And the new structure came along some years later. Mm-hmm. But they were doing it. They were doing it for years there. And I thought that was just the most amazing thing, being, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
6, 7 years old. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
I'm glad you know that. Isn't it powerful, though, to think of that one woman recognize what one person can do to, start at least. She had friends who helped her, but just to get it started because she recognized the deficit, as has happened throughout our history. She recognized the deficit and the gap, and she just sought to fill it in any way she can, which was starting in her house.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So where's the state of the DuSable Museum now? I know where, know the location.
Well, we over there rocking this Black History Month. If you haven't been in a while, you have to engage us. We are making history. DuSable has executive producer credits on a new feature film that comes out February 16th. And then we partner with this group, Stello Stories, and we're telling the story of Oluda Equiano. When I was teaching,
man, I love that book. Thanks for
yeah, thank you. Yay!
Oh, I love Oluda. Oh yeah.
So we were teaching that. I taught that in Black Studies. I taught it when I taught Afghan Lit, right? But most people don't know it. Most people don't know that story. But listen to this dude. He was he was of Igbo culture, right, from what's now called Nigeria. And he was captured, and he talks about his life. What made his story so unique is that he's the first person to write their own narrative about enslavement. So, of course, when we tell our own stories, he starts the story in Africa in a loving community with his family. That was rare. That's the first time people had seen that. To have a book be considered a bestseller, you had to go to print twice. His book went to print 9 times. 9 times. It was a phenomenal success. And listen to this. He crowdfunded to do he self-published the book and crowdfunded to do the book, what we now call crowdfunding.
Right.
Yeah. He went to people and collected money, and then because he didn't trust people, he had been, scammed multiple times on other things. So he published his own book. This is a powerful story, especially for this day that people need to know. He self-published it. He raised money amongst other people. Then he wrote a letter to the Queen of England. And once his book sold 9 times, he used that power that he got and that attention that he got to help end slavery in England.
Wow. Wow.
That. So
I didn't know that in high school.
Yes. So our movie starts with him at 11 years old, and it begins in Africa, right, in Igbo land, in his home village, and then it shows when he was captured and on the boat. It doesn't go all the way his life. It's just still that 11-year-old thing. But what I love about the film is that we get to dispel these myths about Africa, because people always think like it was crazy, boiling people, weird stuff that happened, when they were calling it the dark continent, all this, saying like, oh, all this bad stuff was happening. Well, him telling his story in the 1700s dispels all that. And if you know the story, it's so beautiful, because he talked about how he was amazed that these people not clean, like they eating with their hands, they haven't even washed their hands, all this stuff. So he dispels all the myths, and that's pretty cool. The slavery part is horrific, but I think what's powerful, because for me, I don't want to revisit like trauma. I don't want. I'm saying careful about trauma porn, But what makes his story so powerful is that he, first of all, the story of his family that he came from. That's a beautiful story, right? And then he found a way to make money and save money and bought back his freedom, and then ended slavery, fought hard to end slavery for other people. So go back and get them, go back and help. That's exactly what he did. So it's a powerful story.
Wow. So y'all telling the story of his life or the story of the book?
We're telling the story of his life as he told it in the book.
In the book. Okay.
But we're only dealing with his 11-year-old self.
Okay.
And listen why this is so important. The group, the film partners that we partner with, they're doing a series of 10 films, all told through the eyes of children, about historic times or historic people. The first one they did was Eva Stories, EVA.stories. It's on Instagram. You can look at it. It's about the Jewish Holocaust. 300 million people clicked on it and looked at it in 48 hours. 300 million. 20 world leaders commented and said that was a travesty. Never again will we allow that to happen. Right. And now I'm saying now it's our turn to have the mic. Oluda Equiano, his name means the voice that echoes. Right. And so we're passing him the mic. We're giving him these social media platforms, first to dispel the myths, and then to get our whatever. I'm telling people I know who working towards reparations, people who we want people to see what our reality was, what that disrupted, and then we ask some demands coming with it, demands behind it for other groups, but it's a tool people can use. So I'm very proud about that. It'll premiere on February 16th on Instagram only, right? It's on Instagram. It's free. You can see it. It's put on Instagram, shot in a format that fits a phone, because we want all the populace who engages in social media to have access to it and to see it. So it's pretty powerful. I worked with a team. I pulled together a team of scholars to deal with, to make sure that it wasn't out of context. So we worked with Dr. Greg Carr out of Howard University and Dr. Akinyele Imoja, who runs this. Greg was running the AFAM program at Howard. Robert A.K. Akinyele Imoja was running the AFAM program at Georgia State, and I was running the AFAM program at Chicago State. And we worked together to create what's called social lessons. Those are some little extensions, right, that explain kind of some of the core concepts you see in the movie.
Nice. That's what we need. That's what that type of retelling from that individual's perspective, because too often our story is told for us, and so we lose the real brevity of the situation, like what actually happened. As you can see, the congressman walking behind me, so we're happy he was able to tap in. It's Dr. Kim Dulaney. We say, oh yeah. We want to make sure we try to make sure that we get some guests on that you will love here. Yes, sir. So we're gonna get the congressman tapped in in a second. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was just, being that you're obviously African American teacher or former, and work for the Duzabo Museum in such a large capacity. What does Black History Month mean to you? You know?
Well, it's important that people know, I hear people talk about Black History Month like, oh, they gave us the shortest month. That's not real. They didn't give us. We had a week during that month that we chose ourselves. Right.
Right.
So that Carter G. Woodson chose that week, right? And so then it just happened, stretched out to that month. But what Black History Month was meant to mean was not just the only month that we look at Black history. It's a calibration month, I call it, like a calibration month. Like during Black History Month, we're supposed to kind of check ourselves and assess ourselves and see how we're doing with dealing with Black history.
Yeah, okay, I hear that.
That's what it's
not like, I hear that.
Let's talk about Black stuff, and then the rest of the year you don't do nothing. No, it's because we had this great battle and all these corrections to do, and we have we call them Black studies, the deconstruction and reconstruction of these broader narratives. Black History Month is a time for us to turn the lens specifically to what we've done and then measure our progress to see, hey, are we...
Hold on. Give me a second here. Sorry. Why can't mute your mic? Give me 1 second. Yeah, it did. A wind tunnel, for sure. There we go. Let me see. Let me try to get you in here again. Let me get him in the right way. All right. We in now. Okay. Sorry about that, Doctor.
Yeah, and then we're supposed to measure our progress and see, and then regroup and see how we collectively move forward to continue this work. That's what it's for. So that's what it's meant for. And what it means to me, to be honest, is that it's a time. It's because I do Black work all day, every day. That's that's my life. So not just at Duzabo, my whole life. That's what I do. So for me, it's generally a time where I can gauge where the masses are. So I can see where I need to do more work. Like, because everybody jumps in Black History Month. Everybody jumps in, jumps ahead, and takes the lead. So, I just kind of spend Black History Month making sure things don't get off rails too much. Because people who don't generally deal with Black History Month, they come in and jump ahead of the line. So I just make sure it doesn't get real.
I never thought about it in the way that you just presented it, but that is a really strong way to view Black History Month as just a point of reflection. Just, okay, where are we right now? Every February we taking stock of where we at. And like, because one of the things that I do that speaks to this, and I've been doing it since the month started, is I go back and I listen to those speeches. I listen to conversations. One of my most favorite conversations to this day still remains the conversation between Nikki, Giovanni, and Baldwin.
James Baldwin.
I was like, why I keep forgetting his first name? I literally got his picture on my wall. So James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, and this is a generational conversation they were having about the time.
Yeah.
And you could take what they was talking about in the 70s and put it right here today.
Absolutely.
All the speeches, the speeches, all of them reflect today. So for me, as a young person, I'm like, man, we 60 years past and we still talking the same. So to look at it in a way as a measuring stick, I'm like, okay, I like that viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah. Listen, because a lot has changed, but not much has changed, So we get to look at history, and then other people who have not had proper exposure to Black history get some tools to use throughout the year. That's what I think of that too. So it's beautiful now with social media. Everybody, people post some beautiful, rich things, and they really do. And so if you haven't had access, if you haven't been involved, if you haven't been exposed through teaching, you can have those things. Now, any parent can just go online and find some interesting, great historical content to share with their children at home. Like happened when I was younger. When I was younger, you got taught in school, but then your parents taught you culturally specific things at home. So that's another time when tools and information is all over the internet for people.
Yeah. We talk about the teaching, and I'm one that's a proponent that education starts in the house. When you go to school, it's almost like a reinforcement, and there's some pushback there as people like, no, you go to school to learn. And I'm just saying, as a person who loves to educate other people, and especially looking forward to doing so with my own daughter, I'm like, now I know the fact that I'm supposed to teach this baby before she go, like knowledge of self comes from my house.
Absolutely.
They're gonna learn that. They're not gonna learn that in school. That's why they go off the path. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at it in that sense too.
Yeah, if you look at the research, it shows that this was the first generation that trusted completely and relied on strangers to build the identity of their children. Right? That didn't happen in my generation.
I've never heard of that. Wow.
Wow. No. Wow. That's what I'm saying. You had people always talk about, people who don't really study history talk about like the Jewish did. Well, we did it first. We did it, So we had Saturday school. We had schools in the churches. We had schools that taught you. The Black Panther Party, if you look at them before, when they started the free breakfast program, right? They had schools where they taught you about yourself. Now you go to school to learn like math and reading and those
science,
but to properly contextualize that culturally specific, nuanced ways and information about yourself, we taught that. We taught.
I'm looking for a time where we can get back to that. What you say? What say you, Congressman? Happy Black History Month to you, sir. You a legend.
Well, I think communication. My daddy used to tell us that there's nothing new under the sun. And I think what he really meant is there are so many things that we don't know about. And Black History Month is a reminder. For example, Booker Washington and the president of Sears Roebuck built 5,000 schools for blacks in the rural South. And I mean, so those were black people, black teachers. This was before the Panthers. This was in the 30s and 40s in the rural South. Julius Rosenwald and Booker Washington teamed up. They called those the Rosenwald schools. They didn't call them the Booker Washington schools, but they were a team. I just had the most wonderful day, I tell you. I think it's a reinforcer. I attended the Rain or Shine Missionary Baptist Church this morning, and they had a Black History program, and I was speaker. And I was more interested in what I was hearing than what I was saying, because they started the service with the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and then I kind of chatted with them about what that really came from and where it came from.
They say it again. Was it the?
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He's tramping out the vintages where the grapes and wrath are stolen. He has released the lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. That's the song that the Union troops would sing as they were going into battle during the Civil War.
Okay.
And as they were, that was a part of all of that. But then they had questions. They asked questions. And people, Carter G. Woodson's name came up. They asked the question, who was the founder of Black History Month? And somebody answered it. They got a little prize. And then they had questions about different movies and different things. And they prayed and had communion and did all the other stuff that you do. But they just kind of laced their whole service in with a recapitulation of Black history. And so I just had a good time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it reminds us something. It's like the reason some people go to church. They don't necessarily have to get religion. They already got it. So they go to have it reinforced. And so we know the things that we ought to do in many instances, but sometimes we don't do it. I'm saying when we patronize a Black business, we are dealing with Black History Month. You know, when I go on Chicago, Allen Avenue, and there's a little shop over there that sells women clothing and women hats and scarves. And I may pick up something and take it home to my wife and say, "Hey, look what I bought you on Chicago." I mean, that's what Black history and this business of other people helping shape the thinking. One of the saddest things I know about Chicago is the number of Black teachers we don't have in our public school system. Yeah. And I don't know how we got to that point where I mean, teaching at one point was just considered to be a most noble kind of profession. Facts. Something. But if you have people, and I don't have any problem with anybody teaching, but I just think I remember going to the Gregory Elementary School several years ago to give a speech to the kids. And there was only one Black man at the school. That school is in North Lawndale, right on Douglas Boulevard. And there was only one man, Black, at school. And so the kids would see somebody other than themselves. And so they wouldn't necessarily grow up thinking that they could be a teacher, especially the boy. So I think we just keep struggling, keep reinforcing, and keep trying to know that nothing becomes anything unless we make it so. Absolutely. I'm saying when I started having people come speak and be at programs and all that kind of stuff, even when I was a school teacher, I would bring the kids' daddies in to speak on career day. I'd bring some guy's father who was a bus driver, or I would bring the plumber in. Matter of fact, the way I got to know Reverend Clay Evans' family, I was teaching a fellow named Joe Evans' son. And his daddy was a plumber before he became a preacher. And of course, Alfred, I was teaching Alfred. Oh, I was just going to say, I think I spoke to Alfred Evans. Yeah. And who was that? That happened to be Reverend Joe Evans' son. But Joe Evans was a plumber before he became a preacher. And I had him come and speak to my class. And of course, I ended up getting to know the Evans family, Reverend Clay Evans and all of them. And matter of fact, when Paris just died, his brother Gary, who had a church over there. So I'm saying we can create what people ask me, what's the proudest stuff I've done? And I think one of the proudest things I've done has been to elevate other people. There have been so many people that we help elevate from, because when I talk about things, I talk about an Ida Mae Mo Fletcher. I named the post office after Mo Henry, Mary Alice Mo Henry. And my colleagues, they were accustomed to people naming post offices after mayors and people, judges, whoever, soldiers who've been killed in the military. And I named all these post offices after ordinary people. Robert LaFleur, I named that post office after Bob LaFleur. He used to live right down the street, not far from here, right?
A great man too.
Yeah, I'm saying I named one after Otis Grant Collins, over on 18th Street, over in the Lawndale community. I named one after Milton Bronson, Reverend Milton Bronson, right there on Laramie. We could create things, and all we have to do is use our ingenuity, our creativity.
Sorry, we lost you.
And it happens.
So, Dr. Kim, I wanted to talk about. So, as the congressman was stating about, the lack of people of color in the educational system, being one of those barriers that we have against us. You, as a person who taught African American studies, what's your viewpoint on that, and how do you think that truly affects, even at that level, the graduate level, for individuals not to be able to see a like representation of themselves?
Yeah, I think that has a horrible effect on somebody who's trying to construct an identity. One of my areas of study is identity construction, right? So when we look at the behavior of the young people in Chicago right now, which harming themselves, harming people who look like them, I would love to see some research done on what the numbers were before all the schools were closed in those Black communities. Before, I would love to see the correlation between those kind of changes and the changes in the number of Black teachers, and then the crime rate. I would love to see those numbers, right? And the violence in the city. What I know is that the research shows that when people see themselves in a positive way, they behave better. They're less likely to hurt you. They're less likely to hurt somebody who look like themselves, because we know people hurt who they're around. So, everybody hurts who they're around. But you're less likely to do so if you see some commonality in somebody and it feels like you know them or can relate to them, or they look like your mama or your sister. It's, but the more we have all of these, the access to social media and all this other imaging and the way others see us, the more lost we get about who we are, right? And so I think the education system not being welcoming it's not just that we don't have Black teachers, it's not a welcoming environment for Black students, right? So let me tell you, so I told you my work is in that's Black studies stuff. So I went to teach elementary school while I was getting my doctorate, because I said, I know all these young Black men in my family even who were brilliant, and by the time they get grown, all went to jail. Majority of my relatives, all end up in jail. So, and then my son's friends, my son went to the IB program early, sharp, intelligent. Other young men who went with him, several of his best friends, end up dropping out or end up incarcerated. What's up? I'm like, what's up with this? These are nice young men. What happens in life between when you're brilliant as a young Black man and end up in jail? Well, when I went to the school system to teach, what I found is that it's an unwelcoming environment where you feel like you're being assaulted. I thought it interesting that I taught African American studies as a specialist teacher. I thought it interesting that the students who were supposed to have behavior problems were my best students. They loved me. They loved my class because my class celebrated who they were. Everything else, one young man told me, he said he would get in trouble and they would send him to my class, and I would come in because I'm the only person can handle him or whatever. Sometimes I would come into work and he would be sitting outside my classroom door. I'm like, what you doing here? One day I said, what you doing here so early? School just started. Well, I think you just want to be in here with me. Why? He's like, no. He said, you know what, Miss Dulaney, they don't like me here, so I don't like them. He said, everything I do is wrong. They say
Mm-hmm.
the way I talk is wrong. The way I dress is wrong. Everything about me is wrong here. And it clicked for me. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This little guy was in 5th grade. He had a lot of fights and stuff, but he said, the people here don't like me, so I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, and if you think about it, if you feel unwelcome, you don't see any images that look like yourself, you don't, the way you talk is you're saying, stop talking like that. That's wrong. It's not wrong. These are languages. Languages are for communication. So if you speak even in slang, that is a way of communication. It's not the broader way that's going to get you a job, but it's a way for so the different approach is, I said, that's not the language for this environment. Let me teach you this language because you're smart. Let me teach you this language. Just like I could be as knowledgeable as I want to be and go to China and don't speak Mandarin and look crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's just a different language. It's not a bad language.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different language that you can't speak in this environment. Same all the way through college. You know, I taught English at first, and it was interesting for me that Black people were having a hard time passing the English exam, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know what I found? Guess what? The approach I took was like the ESL students, English second language students. I took that same approach for the Black students, and they all passed.
Wow.
It's not your native tongue. So come on, let me teach you this language. Let me teach you the language of this environment, right? So you speak this language. It's not a bad language, you know. It's a great film about Ebonics called The E Word. You should watch it if you get a chance. An old documentary where they looked at that and showed that Ebonics is a legit language. It's a legit language, right? But since it's not the language of the main narrative here, then people bastardize it because, and let me say this, it's out of love and concern because people know you probably won't be hired if you're speaking like that. You probably blah, 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 all this, which are real things. But I think the approach is different when I say it's not the language you need for this environment as opposed to you're wrong. That's
so I want to know, is Ebonics the same as Ave, African American Vernacular English, or no? Okay.
No.
So what's the difference between Ebonics and Ave?
Well, Ebonics is a real linguists say it's a real language, and they talk about it, right? African American Vernacular is an adaptation of English. That's English, which is a little different.
Okay, I get. Okay, I follow. I definitely follow. Okay, I definitely follow. Got something, Steve? You want to jump in?
I wanted to bring up. Remember, we had a conversation maybe a few months back, and you said, Steve, you know, I had very few Black teachers when I was in school.
Right.
But for me, all of my teachers were Black in the 70s and the 80s. Even in high school, I had the whole high school probably had 7% Black teachers. And we had Miss Andrea Stewart, which was our African American Studies
wow.
teacher. And she was there she just retired. She was at OR for 50 years. And many people, you know, they always attribute their knowledge of Black history through her from her teachings. And DeAndre just couldn't.
Were you educated?
Pardon?
Did you get educated?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, even my wife, she said that she didn't learn about certain things like Black Wall Street and you know, because that was kind of like secondary until she ended up in Miss Stewart's class.
When I taught, many of the Black teachers were FTBs, what we call full-time basis substitutes. And many of them would pass the written exam, but they gave oral exams during that time.
Oh.
They would not pass the orals. I have friends who spent basically their whole careers as FTBs.
Wow.
They never were certified as public school teachers. And they find people, they're regular people They outstanding people, but they didn't get certified. They were FTVs.
Can I do something real quick? So one of the things that I want to do, this Black History Month, I want to throw in some of, as I'm watching these videos and these speeches, I should say, I think it's important that we put a little bit of this into our programming for this month. And so I want to put this this piece that I was watching with Malcolm X in it, and I think this is important. So I'm just gonna play this real quick, man. I'm sorry for interrupting y'all.
No, that's good. That's good.
Malcolm, he was around the same time.
Who taught you, please? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna throw a couple of those clips in every time we do a show, man, because I think it's important that sometimes we ask these questions. This Black History Month, and the focus is on Black individuals. So I think as Malcolm X put it, who taught you? Who taught you this?
And we have to live with truth.
Absolutely.
When I was a kid, to try and prevent us from drinking coffee, they would tell us that coffee would make you black.
Oh, wow.
They sure did.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Ask anybody my age.
That's crazy.
When I grew up. And I guarantee you, they will tell you the same thing.
Wow.
They said coffee make you black.
Mm.
If you wanted to fight all day, call somebody black. You're a black dog or whatever. We didn't use swear words. But a person would say, you're a black dog. That's a fight till the finish. That was an all day long.
Damn.
It sure was.
Wow.
James Brown hadn't said it.
At that time.
Say it loud. Black.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
No, I mean, again, the other thing you didn't realize, I had quite a few Black male teachers.
Right.
Even throughout grade school, I had 3 Black male teachers.
Uh-huh.
In high school, I had a Black geometry teacher, Dr. Scott.
Right.
Dr. Scott was my geometry teacher from Austin. He was I think he ended up being the principal at Austin.
I don't know.
He was my
counselor.
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe
yeah, coach.
Yeah, it was coach. That was coach. Yeah, that was coach. He started being a principal though, like my last maybe 2 years at Austin, and he used to walk around with his African garb.
Oh yeah.
And man, that Dr. Scott was he was one of them ones because he definitely made sure that type of impression, man, is something else. It's very difficult, especially as a Black man, to see another person and to relate to them if they're not like you. You know what I mean? But when you see it, and then when you see somebody who actually accepts their culture like that, because the shiki, the hat, you know what I mean? He used to come in there, he used to do it, and he had his beads on.
Oh yeah.
And we didn't know nothing about it. Didn't know nothing about whatever he was doing, but it felt right. It looked right. It exemplified what I thought a Black man should possibly look like. Same thing I used to tell Steve about the lift every voice and sing. When we was kids, they used to play lift every voice and sing. I didn't know what that was. I just know that I felt a lot better and different about that song than I did the Pledge of Allegiance. I ain't gonna lie to you. I had no idea. As you get older, you start. So those things, those things really resonate, man. Seeing the culture, feeling the culture, hearing the culture, it's a total different experience, and it's only getting greater as I'm older. The thing that my lady and I did, we did our research and our ancestral history, and we named our daughter based off the West African tribe that my lady is from. You know, she's a West African Ghanaian woman. You know what I mean? She would have been the Mende woman, and we named our daughter.
Oh, me too.
Oh, you too. There you go. You know what I'm saying? Y'all will be best friends. You know, so we named our daughter Ayala to connect with that, to give her, you know, some rooting. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important. I think it's absolutely important.
Absolutely.
You had a bunch of those, just like Scott was at Austin, Harold Charles was over at Farragut.
Grady.
Of course, he ended up changing his name. The whole thing started to Shule Watoto. I'm saying there was awareness being taught from many different vantage points.
What about Grady Jordan from Collins?
Oh yeah, Grady worked at the Nash Elementary School. He taught at Manly before he ended up being a principal at Nash. Then he went to Collins. Then he became the superintendent of all the high schools.
Yeah.
When they had that system. And he still lives right
there. Yeah. He lived down the street from me. Mr. Scott does also. That's the most impressive thing. It just doesn't, when you said singing, lift every voice and sing, that was implanted into us. When we got to school in the morning, we had to say our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. All the kids got more motivated and ready for school after
definitely.
Guess what? When you go to events, and I've gone to colleges and university events with students, and they want to start with lift every voice and sing, but they got to have a piece of paper to read.
They don't know the word? Oh, no, we know that word for word.
The words of the national anthem.
Oh, man.
They've never been taught it. So everybody got a little piece of paper singing. We learned the Black National Anthem when pretty much I learned how to talk. I'm saying they taught it to us at Sunday school. They gave us some of the meaning behind it. And so we understood that James Weldon Johnson and his brother came up with it. All that kind of stuff. But if you're not being taught, you don't know.
Dr. Kim, you talked about like the deconstruction and reconstruction of an individual, especially relates to their culture. And so something like a lift every voice, which is absent now, you know, in our community, which could help you understand a little bit more about where you're from and where you're trying to go. But that's missing. So you being an educator and knowing this facet of life, like what else do you think we should be instilling, you know, that's no longer here, that could help with that reconstruction of who we are?
So this is going to be very problematic, what I say, okay? But I'm going to say it. And that is, so we judge young people so harshly, but the core concepts, some of them they still possess. They're just because, like when we could talk about the deficits of what they don't have, but it's what we didn't give to them. So that's on us. We didn't give it to them, right? And so they find themselves trying to scrap together and make up like the concept of, so for me, to be across generations, I look at core concepts, right? To be across cultures, all Black cultures, I look at core concepts. The core concept that you'll find, Africanism, we call them, that exist, is communalism, right? So we work together. So a couple of years ago, I had my students say their favorite song, and I'm talking about the power of the music you're listening to. Everything does. And so they picked their different songs. So I let them use, and I didn't bash their music. I tried to listen for what makes them like this music. Guess what I found? The core concept of communalism in them.
Explain that though. What do you mean? Because
okay, so listen, like the song that became one of my favorites because of the beat, My Hitters, right? So My Hitters got a nice beat. What is My Hitters saying? My Hitters saying, I'm not going in unless I'm with my hitters. I'm going to put my hitter on. It's communalism. And we're going to work together, and we're all going to rise together. We're going to support each other. Now, because they don't have the tools or the access to use it in other ways, then we stand on the side and judge them, those of us who have access. I find that problematic. The core concept is still there. They're engaging each other to try to survive. They're saying that, so the core concept of communalism exists. What we have to do is give them access to other things so that they don't have to choose the things that they're choosing, that they think they must choose to survive. It's a reality. It's a reality. And when we sit perched on our place of privilege and say, well, they don't have to do X, Y, Z, until you can't eat, right? So we have to give people access. If I miseducate you, undereducate you, those are forms of abstract violence. So I don't have to stab you or shoot you. I can just miseducate you and harm you greatly, right? If I don't give you access to where you're going to be able to get a job, where you know how to fill out an application, where you know how to practice discipline, and where you feel horrible about yourself, if that's what I give you in the place of education, then of course you're not gonna. It's harm. It's abstract violence. Abstract violence is when you can't readily identify the assailant, right?
Wow.
But yet it's doing harm to you. So when you have miseducation, undereducation, when I show you all whiteness and white ways and Eurocentric models and make you worship that, it makes you hate yourself.
Right.
That's abstract violence.
Right.
That's abstract violence. So what do I think we need? I think that we have to come from all of our different corners of the culture, right? And first of all, understand that the other person is just like you. Everybody you're judging is just like you, with different exposures, right? And different opportunities. That's the truth, right? If I see a woman that works in the sex industry, I'm not saying, oh, look at her dirty self. No, I'm saying, wow, I wonder what her options were. I wonder what broke her to make her see that as a viable thing and not this other thing, not these other things, right? So I'm trying to see how we can dig in and find where the breaks are so that we can shore that up, right? All the imaging that you see, that's the work I do. That's the work I did as a professor, as a teacher. That's the work I do at DuSable. I'm trying to give you back to yourself, because when I give you back to yourself, let me tell y'all something. I went to Cook County. Two of my little cousins had got arrested for some beef, some problems or whatever. They end up in the county. I was sending them books because they both graduated from college before they got arrested. But they were at the wrong place at the wrong time and something happened. I was sending them books because they like to read. All the guys in there was loving their books so much, they start asking me for more and more books. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do a library for y'all. And I called a friend I know, a big businessman. He put me in touch with Dart. And I said, I want to do a library. Well, because of some semantics, some problems where they said they need a person who can handle the books, because then the books could be used as weapons, whatever, all this stuff. They need a person who will manage the cart, all that. They said they couldn't do the library at the time. First, they said they have a library, and my little cousins told me they only have a law library. They don't have a library like the books you send them. I had radio hosts, Chicago State, people in my church. Everybody was ready to donate books, but we couldn't get the books in. And then Nikki was there at the time running the county here. And she called me and said, we can't do that right now. It's complicated. We got to get this and that. I went and met with her and Dart and everybody. And I said, you know what? I'd like to go into Division 9, 10, or 11.
All the tough ones.
Where the people accuse me of murder. And I want to teach Black studies. Dart said, okay. He set it up. I went in, taught it. I got to tell you, one of my best Black studies classes ever. So this whole notion that they're ignorant and dumb, that's not real. When I went in, I couldn't take all of the devices we use. Like I didn't have no black big computer, because you couldn't take those things in there because it's dangerous, right? I went in, I had a dry erase marker. On the first day I'm talking to them, And I said, I want y'all to know I'm not getting paid to be here. I came here because I know that you are leaders and the people on the streets listen to you. I want to give you a different view of who you are and give you some options so you can spread it back out to the streets, right? Listen, I said, we're going to start with in Africa, but I couldn't bring in a map. I said, I wish I knew how to draw a map. Look, I wish I could have brought in my laptop, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, anybody in here know how to draw? And then they all said, one guy, I'm not going to say his name, they said him. And then I said, but I need somebody to draw Africa. I wish I could show you what it looked like. He said, no, I got it. He got up, went to the board and drew Africa perfectly. This dude in my class in Cook County.
Yeah.
This dude was in there for murder, accused of murder. He wasn't speaking like, yeah, he's like, no, well, I got it. You know, he get up there, he draws Africa perfectly. I assigned them books. And for they created an education tier with all the guys on that tier. If you didn't get any problems, you get to stay on the education tier. I took them copies of books. They would read it in one night, read the whole book. And when I come back for class, they know the whole book. You know, they were very
thirsty for knowledge.
I said, and then guess what one guy said that will forever ring in my ears. One day, the one guy said, you know, the night before you come here, me and my then husband would go. He said, the night before y'all come here, I can't even sleep. I'll be so excited. The other guy told me when he's about to leave, he said, I ain't going to even lie, Professor Dulaney. He said, if I would have met you before I got in here, no, he said, if I would have met you before I got in here, I never would have met you. If I would have known this before I got in here, I never would have met you. If I'd have been exposed to this information before I got in here, I never would have met you. Do you hear what I'm saying? So he's saying, just knowledge, this knowledge you're sharing, if I'd have known this, I would have never went to jail.
Right.
And different options.
Right.
So, and guess what? That's not a miracle. All the research shows that people who you teach about themselves, Naim Akbar said, education starts with knowledge of self first. And then it expands outward, and you start to see comparison and expands outward. If we miss the knowledge of self, we do a disservice. We commit violence against people, right? And so if we want to really curb the violence, if we want to really have people care about themselves, people who have access to more money than ever before, Black people, all these things. But if we want to see them really affect change, we got to give people back to themselves.
Yeah. We got it backwards, you know, as it exists right now. We go to the school of hard knocks, you know, all of us do. And then at some point we learn about ourselves, you know, and that might take 30 years.
Yeah.
We really start to focus like, man, who am I? What do I want to do? What do I like? You know, and that's the difficulty of it, because some people go by the wayside way before because they've been taught by the school of hard knocks for so long, you know?
Right. That's right.
We had a guy on last week who talked about, well, about 2 weeks ago, who talked about the fact that when he went into the system, the majority of the people there had a 6th grade reading level and below. And the fact that the most education that probably existed to them was the fact that they had to go there. You know, he was saying that they turned the prison system as the Black man's university.
Right. As a rite of passage program, it seems like, you know what I'm saying? It's horrible. It's horrible. But you heard the saying that it's easier to build a solid person than it is to repair a grown, broken one.
Oh, yeah. That was Frederick Douglass said that.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not new information. We know those truths. So we should be really focusing our attention on these young people in school where we're not breaking them and making them feel isolated and ugly or dumb or whatever else we do. You know, instead we helping them to recognize that that they are beautiful and intelligent, because most people enter school like that. They do. They enter school excited. And then around the 4th grade, they start recognizing that this system don't.
For me, something wrong. Something wrong. What you got to say, Steve?
I wanted to bring up, you were talking about inclusion. And I was thinking, I'm like, one of the most long-lasting music genres happens to be hip hop, rap music. It's about 45 years old now or more. And I'm thinking, why is that? Why isn't it not like, the Motown era or doo-wop or jazz or blues? Now, people still, indulge, listen to, but hip hop seems to escalate and continue to escalate. It's never really dropped off. And could it be because of inclusion through the music or the genre?
Well, I think because hip hop has morphed a bit. It's more
It's evolved for sure. That's what I was going to say. It's evolved.
The drill and whatever.
Yeah, drill it. Yep.
It has morphed into other things too, just like all of those other ones morphed into something. So it's not pure hip hop. It's morphed into other things. Yeah. But part of it is because we have other ways to put music out now, and it's the music of the masses. See, when you have a controller in it, like now anybody could list your music online. So you can't readily just change because you can't dictate it no more. Before, people dictated. So they said what songs are coming out, what the new era is, what now. But now anybody can make songs. My son has a production company out west there. You all probably heard of Kid Wonder out there. Kid Wonder is the producer. Wonder Studios. He does a lot of work out west there, and they can go direct to market, so you don't have to. Yeah. And so, what sometimes, again, I say when I'm in a university setting, when I'm in other settings, we think our world is the world, but the masses are completely different.
Absolutely,
hip hop is the music of the masses.
Absolutely,
Black masses.
Yeah, I wanted to give space for the anybody that's listening in on the Zoom, to chime in. We got any questions from the Zoom? Oh yeah. All right. Sorry. I think that's Venus. That's Venus.
Everybody's not muted. We're mixing words, so we really can't hear.
Oh man, I apologize for that, Congressman. So what I was gonna say here, I got threw off a little bit with the unmuted thing. So I want to make sure. Let me make sure be clear. All right. So Zoom, no questions or anything yet.
Core?
That is right now.
All right, cool.
Let's keep going.
All right, man, let's get it.
Well, if I could say,
yes.
I was a bad teacher, and I kind of instances happened to me like happened to the professor here, where if you be good with the kids, then they put the kids on you, and like the bad kids are really just kids. So. I had that. Okay, excuse me. I got to go to another.
Okay, so he was just saying that he's familiar with the way that they would put essentially the bad kids on certain teachers, especially if they felt like those teachers could handle those kids.
Oh, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, when I taught, there were kids who would be sent to my room just to get me to pacify them. Well, actually, we had an interesting situation. Ed Smith, myself, a guy named Frank Lipscomb, another guy named James Gilbert, my wife, all of us were young, new teachers. And we were all pretty much committed. Quite frankly, we ran the school where we were. It was small enough. The principal, of course, was white, but we ran the school. I mean, we used to come and we had a lot of ESEA equipment and all that stuff. We had teachers who would let kids watch the Beverly Hillbillies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We took that stuff and locked it up.
Oh.
And wouldn't let them have it. I mean, Frank was the most militant of all of us.
Yeah.
But we were all kind of militant.
They can see us.
And we just took all that stuff and locked it up.
So you can bring it closer so you can
work it easier. Would send kids to get it, and we pretend we lost the key, and we couldn't get it. And we also could relate to the kids in such a way,
Right,
that other teachers couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put it that way. And we had a wonderful time. Matter of fact, many of the individuals that I taught, I see them right now.
Mm-hmm.
me too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are about the same age I am. Many of them are.
Mm.
I actually started teaching when I was 19 years old.
Oh wow.
And they were teenagers,
Mhm.
17, 16,
Oh, wow.
18. And we just had a good time. One guy worked for me now.
Oh, wow. That's what's up. Full circle, for real.
He worked for me now. I taught him 40-some
Who's that?
years. Fred Davis.
Oh yeah.
He's not related. His
Wow.
name is Davis. But I taught Fred when he was in the 8th grade.
Wow.
I saw another fellow over at a drug treatment program. I stopped at the other day. And he's Mr. Davis. And he was one of my students.
Man.
There's another fellow who comes by my office occasionally. I had lunch at a church lunch with 4 of my female students. They call themselves Mr. Davis's girls.
No.
And I asked them, I said, how old are you?
I'm gonna change that.
They say 62.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that.
I said, get rid of
Oh,
that
man.
girl.
Yeah, for real.
Very involved. We all bought tickets to go to the banquet. We just had ourselves a good time.
Yeah.
You, Congressman, you said one thing. There was a pride, and I'm going to go back to high school. You said you and that group of teachers and administrators, you ran the school, and it was the same thing when I was in high school. Those black coaches and teachers and administrators, they literally ran our high school. I remember when we graduated, and my wife graduated at the same time, and I said, man, I'm gonna miss these 4 years because we ran the schools. And it was a trickle-down effect. If your math teacher was Mr. Scott was a football coach, you on the football team, he's telling you what you need to be doing, and you tell them guys that ain't doing what they doing wrong, you need to cool out because Mr. Scott ain't having it. And it was kind of a trickle-down thing where the athletes got everybody else in order. Gangbangers. Matter of fact, all the gangbangers were on the team.
They were
the wrestlers, the baseball players, and it was like you had to fall in order. And I think the principals kind of knew this in retrospect, because you look at the pecking order, it went from administrators and coaches to the athletes. And then all of the drama, it just diminished because other students weren't going to let it go beyond that. And it was amazing. I just didn't realize, and we put a lot of pride into that. We were proud. If we weren't winning, we still were kind of proud that we came together.
Yeah, y'all wasn't winning.
Not back in the day.
Now basketball, they done turned it around a lot.
Dr. Kim, earlier you talked about some of the things that DuSable has going on for this Black History Month. Can you care to touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so International Watch Day for that movie I mentioned is Equiano.stories. You can go follow it now so you don't miss it. It's Equiano, EQUIANO.stories. And you can follow that page, and on February 16th, on that page, the movie, you'll be able to see the movie on there as stories.
Equiano.stories?
Equiano.stories. You see it? EQUIANO.story. We also have and a new exhibit, Equiano exhibit, right? So come in, you'll see artifacts from West African culture in the museum. In this particular exhibit, it's really powerful. They also have in there, we have some clips from the film and a couple of the social lessons that will be in there as well. On February 16th, I know Congressman Davis, I know you're invited. You all are invited. Come on out to there. We're having a special. That's the release day of the film and the opening of the new exhibit. So we're having, I think that morning the media is out. During the day, anybody can come. If you have a school that you think would like to come, we'll sponsor the buses to get them in there. We really want people to see this and feel empowered, right? So that's February 16th. And then that evening is a special event from 6 to 9. That's the event you can come during the day between 11 and 4, our regular open hours, or you can come 6 to 9 to the VIP quote unquote event. And VIP, you can come to that as well on that evening. But again, we have a new exhibit. We have the march there that was sponsored by Viola Davis in Time. She brought that to the museum. It's a virtual reality exhibit, the largest of its kind in a museum. She brought it to DuSable first. You can come and experience that and feel like you're at the March on Washington. We have artificial intelligence exhibit there, civil rights person. You can sit, press a button, and ask her questions, and she'll answer it. We have a lot of modern technology. And then, this year is Harold Washington's 100th birthday. We still have our we still have our Harold Washington exhibit, and we hope to do something special for his 100th birthday. In June, it's the 80th birthday of Curtis Mayfield and the 50th anniversary of Superfly. So that's Black Music Month. We had to honor Curtis Mayfield in June during Black History Month at the museum. So we have a lot going on there.
And I just like to inject into people who make things happen. Mm-hmm. Margaret Burroughs was a great teacher herself.
Yeah.
And with Margaret, Dr. Burroughs was the founder.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But also Emil Jones.
Absolutely.
He was the president of the Illinois Senate, was able to direct a real piece of money to them. Mm-hmm. Institutions like that always have difficulty raising money because you have to raise the money.
That's right.
The government does not necessarily finance these, so you have to go out, raise and beg the money, and do capital projects. And so there are people who devote themselves to institution building, and basically what they do is beg all the time because you gotta raise the money. The money basically comes from private sources. Does not come from government decreeing that here all of a sudden you got a grant or you got this or you got a line item in the budget. No, you have to raise the money.
And on that note, let me tell you all, if you pay attention to history, the people who get the most money, as you're saying, Congressman David, they're people who are not really doing the work. So, and they get a lot of money. But we do have to raise some money. You mentioned Emil Jones. That's my dear friend who I love dearly. Emil Jones is responsible for so much in this city, Chicago State buildings. Emil is he understood.
He knew the assignment.
Thank you. He understood the assignment, and he did it very well.
Yeah.
Now, when he first went to Springfield, he couldn't do that.
Right.
He couldn't do it the next year. He couldn't do it the next year.
Yeah.
He did it after he was there long enough to become president of the Senate. And if he hadn't been president of the Senate, he wouldn't have been able to do that.
That's what and sometimes that's what we have to do. Sometimes we have to get in the systems and we have to work them.
I always have to get in.
You always have to get in the system. But let me tell you, it's a limited time. It's a limited wait on that figuring it out. To me,
Yeah.
in my opinion, you get to go in. You have to work with systems, but you have to at least be showing that you're making some kind of progress, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that you're asking.
Yeah.
That's a real, problem these days. Sometimes, oftentimes people don't even want to ask. At least if we see that you're pushing and you're getting pushback and you're fighting by yourself, at least we see you're fighting. If you're there and you're not even asking, that's a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a problem.
This area has the greatest political opportunities it's ever had since it's been an area.
I agree. I would wholeheartedly agree.
Don Harmon, right across the street here in Oak Park, is the president of the Senate. Don Harmon. Kimberly Lightford, whose family lived out here before they moved to Maywood, is the majority leader in the Senate. She's the number 2 person in the Senate. And of course, Chris Welch is the Speaker of the House. And he lives just a little further west out in Hillside. And so the west area of Cook County is well represented politically.
Absolutely.
In terms of influencing the direction of state money into things where state money ought to be going. We've never had this kind of lineup before since this area has existed. We did have Pat Quinn, who was the governor, and Pat lives right down the street over here also. But Pat was governor, but the legislature really had about as much control over the money as the governor.
Well, I want to bring up one other individual that we should speak about. And he just recently passed away. And I know he's a good friend of yours, Congressman. That would be Emil Black. I mean, if you think of Chicago and you think about all the grassroots, down to earth type of people, he would be one of the most influential in my mind,
Well, Tim was all of that, and he ran for office. He just never got elected. Tim was. It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile. Yeah, Tim was supposed to have been the state senator. Dick Newhouse got elected, and Tim used to always say that the group ended up going with Dick Newhouse because Dick was tall, dark, handsome. And Tim, of course, was a little short guy. Tim said he was short and dark. But he wasn't all that handsome. So he went for Dick Newhouse. But he also ran for alderman as well. And he was the first legitimate activist. I mean, Tim was the essence of activism from the time I first knew him. He was at Farragut High School. He was a teacher at Farragut. Then he went down to the city colleges and taught there the rest of time. But Tim was bigger than life. Tim spent all of his time doing stuff. I'm talking, he'd run in a meeting and he'd stay there and be looking at his watch. And he said, y'all, excuse me, I know y'all been.
Yeah, I feel like that's what my life at right now.
Yeah, exactly. But let me just say this.
Tim was 102. Yeah.
He said, I got to go to another meeting. I'm on my way. But I just wanted to stop by here and let y'all know. So-and-so.
I hear that.
What was going on? Oh, he was fine.
You know what? So like I say, Black History Month, I want to interject some clips. The fact that we on this political thing right now, we in a political season, I think is important that we bring up again another one of Brother Malcolm's legendary speeches. And this is something that he talked about as well in terms of us understanding our politics. So I'm going to play this short little clip here, and then we're going to keep the conversation rolling.
We must understand the politics of our community. And we must know what politics is supposed to produce. We must know what part politics play in our lives. And until we become politically mature, we will always be misled, led astray, or deceived or maneuvered into supporting someone politically who doesn't have the good of our community at heart. So the political philosophy of black nationalism only means we will have to carry on a political program of re-education to open our people's eyes, to make us become more politically conscious, politically mature. And then we will, whenever we get ready to cast our ballot, that ballot will be cast for a man of the community who has the good of the community at heart.
Okay, now. Talk to him, Brother Malcolm. Listen. I love what you said, Congressman, about what we have right now. But for the individuals that don't understand what we have right now, I fear that we may potentially lose this foothold that we have. And I think that is a part of the understanding of being black. Like, politics plays such a huge role, and we have to understand where our politics lie. And I don't think we're there yet, unfortunately.
But everything requires a certain amount of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, if you don't know enough to be able to evaluate your politicians, then you don't know whether they're representing you or not.
Mm.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, just like all the people running for judge right now,
Mm-hmm.
ain't no way you can know them people running for judge in the circuit. There's 6 million people in Cook County.
Yeah.
And so somebody said they ran for judge, and they ain't got $6 to get you to know them. How you gonna know them? How they gonna know the people in Elk Grove Village and the people in North Lawndale at the same time?
Yeah.
How they gonna get unless they are connected and unless they are a part of something that is ongoing?
Yeah.
People don't when they got the ballot. It sounded so outlandish, but we used to try to figure out a way to put black by the people's name.
I hear you. I hear you.
Put out a palm card to try to get people to know that so and so is black. Yeah, we say Annette Hubbard. B a BLK or something. Because we knew that people were not going to know who the candidates were. They weren't going to know anything about them. They weren't going to know what their records were. They wasn't going to know who the hanging judge was. There used to be a judge way back in history, Judge Roy B., known as the hanging judge. He just loved to hang folks. But I'm saying, everything requires work. If you don't work enough to know how democracy is supposed to work, you won't be in a position to make the best decision. And so it takes as much work to just know what's going on in order to be able to decide what's in your best interest.
Yeah.
Like, I know people out here talking about who they're going to support, somebody running for mayor or something. And I don't know what they're talking about. I have a hard time understanding them. I have a hard time understanding what it is that they don't like.
So one of the things that I put up on the screen quickly, and I got you, Dr. Kim, I see you. I put time to KYP. That means time to know your politician. If you go to that website, time2kyp.com, you put your address in, and it's going to show you every single representative up from where you live. So yes, Congressman Davis is my congressman. My state rep is LaShawn Ford. My state senator is he said earlier, Don Harmon. No. Actually, no. Mine's is Dick. No, Dick. What's his name? Dick Durbin. Dick Durbin is mine, actually.
Oh, you mean U.S. Center?
Yeah, the U.S. Center. So everything. Your commissioner, Brandon Johnson, XYZ. So time to KYP.com. So for the individuals that's going to run, they should probably look into getting themselves on one of these type of platforms so that individuals can have one place where they can go. They can learn about people who's already in, and they can also learn about the people that's trying to get in. So that's just my little plugger. So Dr. Kim, I'm sorry I cut your wisdom.
Oh, no. I want to say for Congressman Davis and for the listeners here that I completely understand people's frustration with politicians, right? In politics. I ran for office. I had worked at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District right out of college. The current president was my summer intern. I trained her, right? At Carrie. I trained her and taught her. So when somebody asked me about running, because I was trying to get everybody to run for all kind of things, and then they were like, no, why don't you run? And they tried to get me to run for other positions. Well, I said, I'm not going to run about what I don't know about. But the district I know about, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, I know about that very well. I worked there sampling for the deep tunnel. I know the district like I know the back of my hand. I was there for that. So they said, okay, you're very qualified. You should run. I spent my own money to run for that, $25,000 of my own money. People said, well, you could pay and you pay this certain amount to get on a Democratic ticket. I didn't want to do that. I teach Black politics. That was one of my classes. I wanted to see firsthand how this system runs, and what the problems are with it. And I got a lesson. Initially, right off the bat, people spread lies, told lies. Black people, Black people,
your own people, yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. Black people. Listen, Black people who are in position. And I was thinking they don't know about their budget. The district has a huge budget. We're not getting none of that money. Under Black people, they put in new rules, even for people who was getting small contracts. You let the people put in new rules to knock out the small contracts, right? So when I'm talking, ready to get in, I know about it, and I'm thinking, let's shore it up. I don't have any problem with the people in there getting things for the people who they represent. They should, and we should too, right? So I'm gonna run. Listen, the streets went to work for me. People went in the streets and got them signatures for me, right? I need a certain amount. I got, my high school collective, streets, my cousins, everybody. I do Black work. Black people went in the streets for me and got them signatures. Black politicians who are in space knocked me out of that. And I was in the space.
Oh, we lose. You got your connection kind of. I think we. Oh man. I thought she.
And that's what they do. And that's what they will do. Yeah. And that's why you have to be hard.
Oh, okay. We back in. Okay.
I had a grant, so I had to go to Liberia. When people were going down there to the challenge for me while I was gone. When I came back to the challenge, one time I was sitting at the table, and the lady there, hired by the Democratic machine here, challenged. It was my own daughter, right? She had an initial on one thing, and it was my sheet that I got the signatures on. And I said, wait, how are you challenging that? They challenged.
Oh man.
We know
the game.
Well, that's what they do. I'm saying somebody asked the guy who was John Dillinger, said, why do you rob banks? He said, because
I'm good at it. Right.
I'm saying. Yeah. And that's what they do. And, somebody was talking about.
It's going to keep
knocking. Wait, you're back? Oh, okay.
Keep knocking me out. I'm sorry about that. But anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
What I know is that there are good people out here, qualified people out here who can get in these positions. And what I'm concerned about is the detriment of our people on this whole cliquies kind of stuff. Pay for thing. So when I was running, I went, sat down, had a talk with Emil. He said, yeah, for sure he supports me. He knows me, knows my work. What I know, though, is that people boldly went out and made up lies. And listen, I'm Black. I'm from the hood. You can't just lie on me. That's not how I get down. I know these people.
Want to throw some of them now?
I told them, I went and met with the person and said, "Why are you doing that?" And then she said, "Oh, so you don't know? You must not never ran. This is what politics is." What?
Yeah.
What? And then she says, "Well, I'll go and apologize." I said, "Well, you need to call so and so." Oh, I'll apologize to that person. What I'm telling you is that it's a new world out here, people.
Yeah.
Old thing, it's younger people. I feel bad when my students were telling me they'd rather support Trump than the black people. What? I'm like, what makes you saying that? Because they're tired of black politicians. They're tired of black politicians. Right.
No.
And I'm saying, listen, I'm saying you don't mean that. That's gonna be worse. You know?
Right.
But what you see now is people just bucking against these people who
Right.
with their boats. They get their boats and their fancy cars and leaving everybody else starving.
Yeah.
It's
and that's the big issue. You know that
well, every way of life in a competitive society is full of competition. I'm saying if you ain't at the table, you probably is on the menu.
Yeah, I hear that.
I'm saying
that.
Yes.
That's what exists in a competitive environment.
But that's what sucks though, because like what she's speaking to is the fact that like we want black people in the positions, but can we get the right black people in these positions?
All the other.
And
you think if I didn't stop all the people that against me that I'd have been elected?
Nah, you ain't saying nothing wrong though.
Outfox
you're not saying nothing wrong. Yeah,
who wanted to do what I was doing.
Yeah,
they wanted the title.
Yes,
but I'm not sure that they would have done the same work.
That's right.
Right.
If the people, for example, I was talking to my wife, and we were to my son, and I said, "Well, look, I do more work for people who are in the penitentiary than any single person in the United States of America." Who are the most people in the penitentiary?
It's us.
Black folks.
Yeah. Us.
Black men.
Especially.
If there's anybody in America who do more work for people in the penitentiary than I do, I want to know who they are.
Yeah, I want to shake their hand.
You all lucky over there. You got good people. You got LaShawn Ford. You got Congressman Davis. You got great people. So
we got a nice little West Side contingent over here. I do want to shift to my Zoom. Anybody got questions or anything? You guys been kind of quiet. I know you've been listening, man. I think this has been a great conversation for sure.
For sure.
Tiny? It looked like Tiny you came off mute.
Oh, no, I think it's a good program. I'm just enjoying getting the information.
Okay, bet. All right, that's what we had with it there. Not a problem.
I have a question.
Okay, what's up, Tamika?
So I hear how you guys are talking about how, it's a new day. We have new people coming into office, but we still have some of the same old-fashioned policies that still exist that don't make no sense. So as a voter, who do I know to vote for when I want these type of changes to happen? The campaign promises are not always kept. So what should I be looking for? Like, I'm a person that I like to look for red flags. So what type of red flags should I be looking for when it comes to the politician speeches that come out?
I like to read, and I read something in the Bible where Paul was talking to Timothy. And he said, "Study to show thyself approved. A workman needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the words of truth." So I would suggest that you look for truth in the individuals who are running and try and discern whether or not they are telling you the truth when they ask you to vote for them.
I would add
between the lines, right?
Well, I'm just saying,
look at the history, see what's going on with them before they got into office.
That's a fact. Absolutely.
That's a fact.
Absolutely.
And I didn't say that new people are going in. New people are pushing back now. I don't, I'm concerned. I'm concerned. I think you should run. I think, I would like to put my money behind new people sometimes because, or even show me the money, show me the record, show me, like we could talk about, listen, we can't say that it can't be done because Emil did it. Like you said, he was able to get power and do it. But are you trying to even garner power? I mean, you just a sitting duck or you doing something? I think we have to be responsible. I live out south, right? In Chicago. I live in the Morgan Park, Beverly area. I told my students, Matt O'Shea out here, we get holes in the streets, he fix them. One day I went to a community meeting. The people didn't like the flowers, some foreign flowers that they had planted, because they thought it was too many bees in an area where people not even sitting. He changed. Listen, he changed them. He changed them. Yet in our communities, people buying their own asphalt, filling up the holes on the ground. Why?
He did it.
What is this? What is this? In our community here, somebody, they didn't want to walk to the corner to cross the park because they said they like to cross by the swings in the middle of the street. They said you should put a stop sign right there in the middle of the street. He's doing it. What I'm trying to tell you is that it's not a blackface thing anymore because everybody black-skinned ain't of black consciousness. Now, what I would like to have, of course, for me, African American, that's what I do. That's what I promote. That's what I believe in. But that's not a pass. That's what I believe in. If you get in, you can't do it. I don't care about all this other stuff we're talking about, to be honest. I don't care about how much money you got. I care about, do you care about the people? Are you going to allocate the resources? Politics is about governance and resources. Are you going to allocate the resources so that my people eat? So that my people get some? And if not, I don't care about your skin color. You should go at home and go back to come to my classes and get some black studies.
Yeah, for real.
Go back and do good work.
So I wanted to talk. So I mentioned earlier about listening to, conversation between Nikki, Giovanni, and James Baldwin. And again, this took place 71, I believe. And same discussion we're having, they were talking about. And they were specifically talking about the fact that you have these black faces in these places that aren't really black. Like, just because they are black face does not mean that that individual is a black individual. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about that they spoke about in that same conversation was the morality of the individual, right? Whereas Nikki Giovanni was talking about power, James Baldwin was talking about morality, right? And they were having the same conversations. And I'm saying that in regard to Tamika, and the point is, look at the morality behind the individual that wants the power. That tells you exactly what type of person they're gonna be.
Period.
So I understand
that too.
Absolutely. But so I just want to add that. Right.
But let me add this: when we were speaking of younger people, and you and Dr. Dulaney, you said they actually went and steered towards Trump. Yeah. They never looked at or did this. They never studied anything about him. They just said, "Look, he's got to be an alternative." But he's do that, but that shows a lot about the younger people. They're not
younger people,
right?
They're not working.
Right.
They want somebody else to do the work for them,
right?
Well, but then they don't trust their resources.
People voted in the last election that has ever voted in the history of the United
What's young people though? Let's get an age range. What's young people?
Whatever you calling young. I'm saying more young people voted than have ever voted in the history of the United States of America.
Okay.
In the last election.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
but
nobody.
Many of them were voting against. Young people vote against. They don't vote for. They vote against.
they pretty much voted for the Democrats in that election. Otherwise, the Democrats
right. But to Dr. King's point, they were voting against though.
They were voting because they felt that the alternatives that they had was not the alternative that they wanted to take. I'm saying all of this, let me tell you, without voting in this country, it's like being in a hatchet fight and everybody got a hatchet except you.
Right.
You will find one way or the other to voice your preference. And if your preference is not to vote, then your preference is to do nothing.
That's
and
right.
And then accept what happened. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's right. Which is the worst alternative. That's the worst. Yeah.
But you're right, Congressman, that if there were, as you said, that was the majority. This last election had a majority of young people that ever voted in the history of voting. You still got to look at it. The Democrats won, so they had voted. The majority of the young people voted for a Democrat,
but only because
overwhelming the most votes. Although our electoral system is set up in such a way that you don't have to get the most votes to be the president of the United States.
Right. But that was only because they were voting against Trump, in the accents, especially January 6th.
They were voting because they had enough hope and enough belief and enough faith.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they did. Something caused them to vote. Black folks in Georgia just elected 2
I get that.
United States senators in the state of Georgia, which is one of the most racist, areas.
Yeah, Stacey Abrams did her thing. She did her thing.
Stacey Abrams did her thing, and
more than Stacey Abrams.
More than Stacey, but let me tell you, Black people. Well, it cracks me up because we so gangster. Black people, if you tick them off, that's when they'll help you. I mean, if you call us out and then we unite and say, okay, but we need some kind of like drama,
catalyst. We need that.
Yeah. Like they're doing us wrong. Then we're gonna get together, all come out. If it's a regular election period, we ain't coming out like that. We just,
I'm saying Black people are no different than other
people. That's true.
Absolutely. Right.
If you touch their their issue,
that's right.
You make them mad or you make them mad. Either one you can do.
Yeah.
If you can make them glad, they'll do things. If you can make them mad,
that's right.
They'll do things. Yeah. So either way really works. And Black people, I hear a lot of things that are just mixed facts. We got a whole bunch of Black people in office in our community. LaShawn ain't no ancient guy.
No, not yet.
Michael Scott ain't got no gray hair.
No.
Matter of fact, I don't think he got any hair. Camille Lilly ain't no senior citizen.
Right.
I mean, Jason and Melissa, they ain't senior citizens. They not old.
Right.
So I think a lot of times there are characterizations that have slivers of fact.
Okay.
But a lot of times I think there's a lot of conjecture without having actual facts.
Right.
As opposed to slivers of things. There ain't never been as many people participating in the electoral process in this country. Is that even with all the people who voted, damn near half the people still didn't vote.
Let me say this about that though. That's worse to me. That's worse. Think about it. If we said we never had this much engagement, we never had this many Black people elected, and everything is sliding backwards.
It takes
So
more.
either we're electing the wrong people, or it's because if you look at it, Congressman Davis, listen, and I think when people say old politics, they're not talking about old people. They're talking about old political ways in the old.
Exactly.
But listen, we got to look at Reconstruction, right? Look what Black people did during the Reconstruction era. A lot of things that we benefit from today, they put in place. People right out of slavery during Reconstruction.
Government put in place, and the Black people did it.
Black people demanded some of that stuff. Black people demanded that stuff, right? So we got some things. The people during Reconstruction, the Black politicians were more effective than now. Here we got voting rights. Listen to this. We got voting rights up challenge. We got school teaching about your culture and being challenged, and laws made about that. Regression. And so for me, with all of these people in place, we have enough people in place to really affect change. I'm wondering. I don't understand.
The Black people who was in government during Reconstruction, all of them got put out.
They did.
Reconstruction.
That's true.
They cut a deal in 1876, the election of 1876, the Tilden Hayes election.
Yes.
Nobody got enough votes to be elected president.
Mm-hmm.
The election was thrown into the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And Hayes went around and told the Southerners, said, look, if you guys vote for me, I'll give you back control of your states and we'll pull the troops out. There will be no more martial law. There will be no more Reconstruction. They elected him president, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do.
That's true.
There were Black people. There was a Black governor of Louisiana then. There was a Black governor, A.A. Pinchback. There were 2 Black United States senators from Mississippi. 2.
Yes.
Ira
Come
Russell
on.
and
That's
Blaine
right.
Welso Bruce. Wow. 2 of them. Bruce went to Mississippi with nothing but a bag and his clothes in there. That's when they started calling people carpetbaggers. But they could read and write.
And they demanded things.
They could read. They moved from the North, went to the South, became part of the leaders because the folks in the South couldn't read and write. It was against the law for them to know how to read and write. And so many of the people who went to the South also homesteaded. They knew how to do it.
Yes.
They knew how to get plantations and land because they could read and write.
Right.
They could not read and write.
That's true.
Except a few who had sneaked and found a way to do it. So many of those individuals ended up being the top dogs in the hood because they could read and write.
That's true.
They also ended up being the preacher.
So how did they? I mean, if the Blacks couldn't read and write, and they were the voters, and they couldn't, the Blacks wouldn't even. Were the Blacks voting? The Blacks couldn't even vote.
Blacks were not voting until Reconstruction. Blacks weren't anything before then except slaves.
So basically, was they just in political position, just in namesake only?
No.
They
created.
Okay.
The radical Republicans, as they were called. They were called radical because they were doing these things that had never been done.
Correct.
When they freed the slaves, they didn't vote to free the slaves. They couldn't get enough votes. Just like right now, Democrats can't get enough votes to pass Build Back Better in the Senate. So Abraham Lincoln, the reason he was so famous and so great, he used executive order. He used executive power and issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, Congress didn't vote to do that until later. But he said, I'm Abraham Lincoln, I freed the slaves. And so That's what made him so. He did it on his own. He didn't wait for Congress. He didn't get the approval because he couldn't.
Uh-huh.
Like we couldn't
But
get
listen,
better pass.
I just spoke on a panel and talked about him recently, right? Abraham Lincoln, and talked about Frederick Douglass when the freedmen were dedicating a monument to him. And Frederick Douglass ran the list and said, don't get it misunderstood. We don't think you so great and did. You've been great. You've been the white people's president, but we appreciate that you signed the paper. So we did this. And that's Frederick Douglass made it plain in his when they were dedicated, the freedmen were dedicating that monument that we want to be respectful. You did sign the paper, but you didn't this. He ran a whole list of all the things you did bad. So but that's what I love. The record, Frederick Douglass wanted it to be on record for us. For when we read that document, read that transcript of his speech, he wasn't confused. He didn't sell out himself because you signed the paper. He said, right on, you signed the paper. Okay, you deserve this monument we're going to give you. But don't get it misunderstood. You were horrible in all these ways.
For sure.
Oh, the July 4th speech.
That one too. That one was earlier. This one was later.
I got to see if it's on YouTube now. Now I got something else to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, man, we at the 8 o'clock hour. And in typical fashion, what we usually do is we wrap up and go around the room. Everybody leave us with a final thought. So I'm gonna start on the Zoom. I'm gonna start look like Tiny. You already popped in. What's up, Tiny? Talk to us.
Oh, everything is great. I just think it was a great program, and you guys keep up the good work.
Oh, we most definitely will. Thank you, sir. Venus. Barry.
Hey guys, great. I enjoyed listening to the show. And Dr. Dulaney, I'd like to talk with you if I could and pitch a story to you of the new West Side.
Wow. Okay.
Would you be available to do that?
Sure. Did you have email? You want my email address?
I'd rather speak to you if that's possible.
But you got to email me to get my phone number because I'm not going to give it out. So
That's great.
We
What's
can-
your email?
my email is K Dulaney, Dulaney, K Dulaney at DuSaboMuseum.org. K Dulaney, just like it's spelled there, K Dulaney at DuSaboMuseum.org. You email me and then I'll send you a number. We talk about it.
Great.
Listen.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Huh?
He said, looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Raheem.
Great show. Yeah, that's all.
We hear you, Ryan.
All right, thanks, boss. Tamika.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the very stimulating conversation. I'm going to say now, I wish I could make it to the February 16th function at the Malcolm X College, but I have class that day. So sorry, but I would love to see it. I had put it on my calendar and everything, and then I realized, wait, it's on Wednesday.
Oh, that's not that bad.
So it's a 5-hour class. So I'm trying to see if I can muster up enough energy to go before the 5-hour class, but
Man, I
we'll
hear
see how
that.
that day works.
Yeah, listen. It's at DuSabo. It's at DuSabo Museum.
Museum was by my father. Pardon?
It's at DuSabo. It's not at.
Yeah, so I learned about the DuSabo. Oh, it's at DuSabo?
Yeah, it's at DuSabo, right. Because I was going to say, I said, Malcolm X? Oh, I could definitely.
She said Malcolm X College. I got to change it in my thing so I can make sure. But my father was a big supporter of the Malcolm X College.
Okay.
I mean,
DuSable?
the DuSable Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I became so familiar with it. But that was like, he's been gone for 25 years, so time ago, but that's how I became familiar with it. And for the fellas, Barry, DeAndre, and Steve, we need to get together to talk about the cartoon.
Oh, okay, bet.
Sure.
All right. Just smack the
Because I was
line.
having some technical difficulties, but I need some insight so y'all can help me finish it up.
Got you. Smack the line. We got it.
I prefer first, so I'll be on the same page.
Cora.
Can we bring the back-to-back
Wait, say
another show?
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, Cora? Once again?
Can we bring the back-to-back?
Oh,
it's so
she would love.
but the time is so short.
Right? It seems that way. It was riveting. It was good. Yeah. So she asked if we could have you back. You know, it's available to you. You know, the link could change. The link that you use to sign in would change, but that's the only thing that'll change. You know.
Okay.
So as long as you want to come back, we'll definitely have you back.
Sure.
Congressman.
Well, Congress included substantial tax credits for 2022 as part of the stimulus laws enacted last year. Importantly, thousands of dollars in credits are available to eligible low-income workers and parents, even if they do not owe any federal taxes. I fought hard for these benefits and need your help getting the word out so that people can get every penny for which they are eligible.
Mm-hmm.
For individual workers without kids, the maximum earned income tax credit is $1,502. For a working parent, the maximum earned income tax credit is $3,618 if they have one child.
Mm-hmm.
2 kids is $6,728.
Let me go find me.
The earned income tax credit is available if you earn $1, and whether you work full-time, part-time, as an employee, as a contractor, or you was paid in cash.
Mm.
We need to make sure that every individual, quite frankly, I must tell you, that this past year was one of the best legislative years that the House of Representatives have ever passed in the history of the United States of America.
Mm.
People who make $75,000 or less as an individual will get $3,600 for any child that they have under 6 years old. If there are 2 people in the family and they made $150,000 or less, they will get the same $3,600 for any child they got under 6, and for any child they got 6 up to 17, they get $250. Now tell me that ain't good for poor folks and low income folks.
Yeah.
And folks who ain't got no good job. And folks who don't make, there are a lot of people don't make $75,000. There are a lot of 2-parent families that do not earn $150,000 last year.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't make $150,000. They can scrape up every dime they can get their hands on. If they didn't, this money is available to them.
Mm-hmm.
All they got to do is file for it. They will get it. And that has been a tremendous year, not to mention the $17 billion that the state of Illinois is getting on the infrastructure bill.
Okay.
So we got to make sure that black folks,
Right.
low-income businesses, women-owned businesses get a fair share of that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Is there anything for seniors?
Right. I'm listening for me too. So
it's a good question. Seniors.
Anything for
What about the
seniors?
seniors?
Senior citizens,
Yep.
yeah, if the Senate passes the Build Back Better, we have included in it dental care. Let me tell you, dental care is very expensive. I went to the dentist the other day.
Yeah, man, very
It cost
expensive.
me $1,400.
Very
So
expensive.
it's very expensive. It is included in the Build Back Better. Eyeglasses, that is vision, is included, and hearing is included. Hearing aids are also very expensive. We included it in Medicare in the House. Now we gotta make sure that the Senate will pass it, and all of that is for seniors. Plus, we are getting ready, I hear, to mark up the Social Security bill, which will increase Social Security for senior citizens or for people who get it.
Okay.
wow.
Steve?
Is there anything in the works for black people exclusively?
Anything exclusively for black folks in the works?
Everything I just mentioned.
You say you better take advantage of it, my boy.
Everything I mentioned. Black folks will be the greatest recipients of that if they go and get it.
Yeah.
I don't know no group that earn less money than black folks do. You can get the earned income tax credit even if you didn't make any money. If you made $1, you qualify for the earned income tax credit. And if you don't know how to get it, there's organizations called VITA organizations, VITA. It means Voter Assistance for Low Income People. So if you make less than $73,000, they will file your income tax for you free. And if you don't know how to get in touch with any of them, you can call my office, 773-533-7520, and we can give you a list of all the VITA centers, and the one closest to you might be the one you would want to go to.
Okay. I just want to say this year is our 50th year anniversary as Northwest Austin Council, and we just want to remind everybody we will be having a meeting. The actual organizing crew or panel will be having a meeting this month. And also, don't forget to go and get registered to vote so you can vote your interests. That's important.
Dr. Kim?
I want to invite everybody to tune into this historic film. I'm listening to what Congressman Davis said, and I haven't filed my taxes yet. So when I file, I'm going to see if I get more back.
Children are more than 17.
I don't have any little children. So next time, look out for the people who work 18 million jobs just to make over 75 and put us somewhere. But I'm gonna let the other people go first. But I would like to invite everybody to watch the movie Equiano.stories. Thank you for putting that on there. Equiano.stories on Instagram. Watch that movie on February 16th. If you have a collective, if you have a group, Northwest Austin Council, if you want to do a talk back, we'll do a specific session with you all where we come into a Zoom room and talk to your collective about what they saw and what they feel about. Anybody can book that through me. Just email me. If you have a school in your area that wants to come visit on the 16th only, though, we can't afford all the time, but on the 16th, That could be on our dime. No admission. Wednesdays are free at the museum. So no admission on that day, and then we'll pay for the bus. But everybody, try to watch that film, Equiano Stories. Make it out to the museum and see the exhibit. And then for myself, I have a new something my children and I are launching called bornfree.online. And it is to push this idea that, listen, people, we were born free. We had to break this slave mentality and think we're limited. And I want children in schools to have on a bracelet, born free. I want you to have a pencil. I want everybody to be reminded that we're born free. We're born free. Our history didn't start in slavery. We don't have to be slave-minded, right? We were born free and we're entitled to things. Let's work together collectively to get them. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So for me, in closing, I'd like to say, again, we do this every Sunday from 6 to 8. We have various ways of interacting with us, whether it's Facebook, the Zoom, or the YouTube. If you're on the Facebook or the YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. That way you can keep in tune every time the show drops. Make sure you comment so that we can put it right into the show. You can interact with us that way. For everybody on Zoom, thank y'all for participating. We appreciate y'all for coming through. Dr. Kim, thank you for giving us your time and your energy. This was a great conversation, and we definitely enjoyed it. My thoughts about things are I'm taking away this piece about deconstruction and reconstruction. It's like unlearn, relearn, basically, you know. But we also got to find ourselves in the process. So for everybody that don't know exactly who they are, man, let today be the day where you start to ponder, like, man, who am I? Where am I at? You know what I mean? Because that ultimately dictates the reconstruction of self that we need to undergo as an entire culture. Yeah. And so with that, I'd like to say, man, listen, they didn't want to give us a seat they did not want to give us a seat at the table, so we created our own. Thank you for allowing us to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Appreciate coming out, Dr. Dulaney. We'll have
yes.